Okay, so this is for our lasagna prep. I am boiling noodles over here where you can't see it on the stove. Something about boiling noodles, don't boil them on maximum temperature. You're going to boil over every time. It's better to go a couple of notches down and keep a close eye on it. Your noodles are ready when they're ready according to the directions. So read the box, see how long they need to cook, and stir them a lot to make sure they don't stick together. Now, this is how we prepare the ricotta for the lasagna. Make sure we get all the egg in there. There we go. So this brand of ricotta has this film on top of it. It's annoying, but I can understand. So I just use a knife to slice it open. And then peel it away. And then we don't have to deal with the film anymore. Right? Now just squeeze the tub and most of it will come right out. Gravity is your friend. See, that was pretty easy. I'm gonna, whoop. Alright, now I'm gonna take my whisk and get the rest of it out of there. Because I don't want to dirty up more tools than I need to. Alright. And now I'm gonna mix the egg with the cheese. I have several different whisks. I could use a smaller one for this, but this cheese is actually pretty hard and takes a lot of effort. So there we go. There we go. Now it's starting to mix. And that's exactly what we want for our lasagna. Cheese is ready. They're boiling just like they should be, and they should be submerged, so I will stir them again so that they're all covered with water. But I'm not using maximum heat and it's not boiling over. This is how you want to cook your pasta. Okay, so as you can see, I've just dumped the noodles into my strainer, and what I'm going to do is actually run cold water over them. They're cooked, they're the texture they need to be, and they're going to get hot again in the oven, so this is okay. This makes it so that I can handle them. I can pick them up with my fingers and put them into the casserole dish. It cools them down quite a bit, because right now they'd burn my hands if or burn my fingers if I tried to handle them. And there are 8 noodles in there, all ready to go. And now it's time to make the lasagna. We have all of our ingredients ready to go. A ladle can be your best friend for the sauce. Move the sauce a little bit closer to the pan so we don't make a huge mess. This is my casserole dish. I've had it forever. Any pan like this will work. And this will make it work very well. We want to put just a little bit of a layer of sauce on the bottom. It works the same way that spraying a non-stick pan works. It makes it so that your lasagna doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. And when you put it in the fridge, which we all eventually will, whether we cover it with foil, whether we cover it with saran wrap, or put it in another dish, eventually it's going to go into the fridge. And this will help keep it from drying out. Now, you don't want a thick layer. You just want some. Evenly distribute that. There we go. Alrighty. Our first layer after the sauce on the bottom is going to be noodles. I have a noodle here that fell apart, so I'm just going to put the extra piece in there with it here in a moment and lay these all out on the bottom. may look pretty, but it doesn't actually need to be pretty. Because you're not going to see this layer when you cut it and eat it. You just need to make sure there's a layer of noodles. If you wanted to cut them all in triangles and spread them out, that would be fine. The important part is you just need a layer of noodles here. Okay. So there's our 4 noodles. And now we want to spread half of the ricotta cheese over them. This is the tricky part. The rest of it's pretty easy. So I'm going to cut that ricotta down the middle and try to evenly distribute it here. And again, doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to make a layer. So that's exactly what we're going to do with it. Yeah, don't lick the ricotta cheese off your finger. Don't recommend it. Tastes a little like eggy sandpaper. And there we go. Getting it all evenly distributed there. That is how you want it. Alright, so after the ricotta, we're going to do a layer of cheddar. And this is where I grated the whole block, which we will probably use. You're going to have 3 layers of cheddar, so you want to use approximately 1/3 of it. You have 1 in each of the layers of lasagna, and then you have the top, which we top with cheddar. There we go. Notice I'm not going all the way to the edges. It's going to melt and push its way out there anyway. So you don't have to go all the way exactly to the edge. You just want a good layer. And of course I wash my hands. And I wash the counter. You always want to do that. That's a given. Let's clean that up or that's going to burn in the oven. Alright. Now that I've washed the cheese off my hands, I'm back. After that layer of cheddar, we want a layer of mozzarella. 1 bag would be plenty, but I have some left over from another thing that I made, so I'm going to use it all, because mozzarella, yeah. And we're going to have 2 layers of mozzarella, so basically we want half on one layer and half on the other. Oh yeah. It's going to be a delicious lasagna. You want your layers as even as possible because you want the lasagna to be the same all the way through. Having 1 bite with more mozzarella and 1 bite with more cheddar or sauce, it's better if it's consistent. Alright, so we're going to save the rest of that mozzarella for the second layer. And after the mozzarella comes the parmesan. Not too heavy on the parmesan. Just want to give a good coating. Alright. And after the parmesan, a real layer of sauce. You want to use about half the sauce for this one. See, notice it's going to go out to the edges anyway, and it's going to push everything out. So that's why we make it the way we do. There we go. A nice good layer of sauce. Make sure everything's covered. And there we go. Alright, after the sauce, the last 4 noodles. I used an off-brand noodle, and it's good. It's a good noodle, but as you can see, some of the edges fell off, and that's perfectly okay. We have our layer of noodle, and that's the important part. I'll wash my hands just a sec. Alright, after our second layer of noodles comes our second layer of ricotta cheese. And we want to get everything that's left in the bowl, because this is it. We're not going to have another layer of ricotta. Alright, putting the bowl away. Now, doing the ricotta spread. Get it all out there. Again, I know I keep saying this, but it bears repeating. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter if it's contaminated by sauce, because you're not going to be able to tell when it's time to eat it. The thing that you're concerned about is that all the layers are consistent. And make sure all the layers are the same. There's a little bit of heavy ricotta there, so I'm going to move it. And look at that. Beautiful. Alright. And then we'll start spreading the rest of it. Think of ricotta like cake frosting. Of course, it doesn't taste anything like cake frosting, but if you were icing a cake, how would you do it? Nice, long, smooth strokes. Right? Yeah, there we go. I do have a block there, but that's okay. We're going to let that slide this time. Alright. And there's our second layer of ricotta. And after the ricotta is another layer, after the ricotta is another layer of parmesan. Again, not too heavy on the parmesan. A little goes a long way here. Just want to give it a good coat. And fresh is better. Really, fresh is better with all the ingredients for this. And now for our last layer of sauce. I'm just going to do it this way because it's easier. And now we just spread it out. That is looking good. This is going to be a delicious lasagna. Most definitely. So we're done with our sauce, we're done with our ricotta. Now for the cheddar cheese and mozzarella. A word about cheddar cheese. You know I said 3 layers, I only made 2. That's okay. Now this is a brand of cheddar cheese that is some of the best in the area. Let's see if I can find that package. Schulzberg Creamery. I used to be a huge fan of Tillamook, and I still am. I grew up not too far from where the Tillamook factory is, and I love it. I mean, I've tasted it as fresh as it comes. It's really good cheese. But Schulzberg is better, and I use the mild version. If you really like a heavy cheddar flavor, you can always use medium or sharp. I'm just going to use up the rest of my cheddar here and try and give it evenly distributed as much as I can. If you can't get Tillamook and you can't get Schulzberg, then your third best option, which is pretty much available everywhere, is Kraft. Off-brand cheeses usually aren't that good. You can always try your local cheeses and see, though. You could be surprised. And it's all about personal preference. But for me, it's Schulzberg, Tillamook, and then Kraft. And all 3 will make a good lasagna. Or you can top your spaghetti with it. And now for our last and final layer, the rest of the mozzarella. And notice the pan has filled itself out nicely. But most of the juicy stuff is in away from the edges. So it's going to cook perfectly. Not perfect, but pretty good. There we go. I have preset my oven to 375 degrees. And the thing about baking lasagna is you want it melted all the way through and just a little bit, tiny bit brown on the edges. but you don't want your cheese to brown on top. And there's a very fine line where that happens. So, like everything else, it's best if you really keep a good eye on it. I'm going to put this in for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to check it. And I will continually check it every 5 minutes until it's perfect. And I'll take a photo to show you what it should look like when it's ready. The thing is, every oven is different. So it's frustrating to try to say, cook it at this temperature for this long and you're good to go. Because really, that doesn't always work. Also, every climate is different. It might take it a little longer to cook or a little less time to cook where you are. So it's just better to watch it. I'm gonna put it in the oven now. Okay, so now I'm checking on it. It's been cooking for 15 minutes. We want to see what it looks like. Yeah, not quite melted all the way yet. A little bit of bubbling going on the edges, as you can see. Cooked, but not baked. So I'm going to go 5 more minutes and come back. Now we're checking it at the 20-minute mark. It's looking a little better for the cheese. It's bubbling a little more at the edges, but still cooked, not baked. 5 more minutes. So I just took the lasagna out. It's cooked for 25 minutes at 375. Look at that. Crispy, just starting to turn brown on the edges. Cooked all the way through. This is going to be a delicious lasagna. But something to remember, the last lasagna I cooked was this color of brown, see where I'm pointing? All the way across the whole top of it. And it's because I overestimated how much time it needed to cook. But you know what? It was still a delicious lasagna. And that's perfectly okay. Even if it is solid brown all the way across the top, it's still very edible. It's kind of hard to mess one of these up. So I hope you enjoy your lasagna, and all love to you.